Okay, starting off with 2016 question number 5. So question number 5, subsection 1 says, right, look like avatar, okay. What is value added and how is it calculated? Yes, what is value added? What can you tell about value addition? What is value addition? Value added, how are you going to define it? Difference between selling price and cost, okay, but not the most ideal way to define it. Anyone else? Okay, right. How is it calculated? Fine. Gross value of output minus intermediate consumption. That's how you calculate it. But what is value added? How are you going to say what value added is? Now, I know all of you all know what value added is, but you all know how to write what value added is. You all know from the total output, if you minus the intermediate consumption, right, you get gross value added. Correct. But what is that value added? Okay, so you can say, right, you can say value addition is there are so many different ways of, putting it, right? You can say it's the newly created value. Okay, what is value addition? It's the newly created value, right, at a stage of production. For example, if I can get some raw materials, if I can convert it into something else, let's say I get cotton and I convert it into cloth, so I've done a value addition there. If I take cloth and convert it into, let's say, a t-shirt, I've done a value addition there. If I take a t-shirt and if I display it in my showroom and, keep it available for sale to the customers, I've done a value addition there. So what is value addition? Value additions are where you newly create value. So during the production process, when a good goes from one place to another, little by little, there's new value that starts to get created. That is what value added is about. Okay. So in your own words, you need to write what I explained, because I'm hoping you all wrote answers and came. I'm hoping you all have a past paper book to check out the answers, because what I type here is just a small basic points. Okay. And then how do you calculate? Please make sure when they ask you how is it calculated, don't just say GVO minus IC. You need to say what is GVO, what is IC, right? So what is GVO? Gross value of output. So from the gross value of output, if you deduct intermediate, right? If you deduct intermediate consumption, what do you end up with? By from gross value of output, if you minus intermediate consumption, you end up with gross value added. That's an easy question, but remember, guys, this question is not hard. But are you prepared to write for 4 marks for a question like this? Is the problem. So that is why writing answers on a piece of paper is important. The more and more you all write, the more you improve on your flow and the more better answers you all can write. Now, I know you can read a tute and you can understand what is value added, how it's calculated. But how are you going to put an answer to it? How are you going to write it in words? That's important. Okay? Right. We'll go to the next. What are the major components of aggregate income? What do you all think? Major components of aggregate income. Now, remember we say aggregate expenditure, right, equals aggregate income. Right? So we say Y equals E. And so what is the Y equals E approach? Y equals E means the aggregate income is the equals aggregate expenditure, right? So I'm asking you, what does this now? E aggregate expenditure has C plus I plus G X minus M. Okay. What does the Y have? What does aggregate income consist of? Aggregate income. Savings, taxes, imports. Okay. Is it only savings, taxes, and imports? Aggregate income consists of what and what and what? Quickly guys, it's a small Small one. What do you think it has? At least open your fast paper book, take the answer and send me a message. Which one, guys? Aggregate income. Okay, there is compensation of employees that's coming. Is it that? Is this the one with compensation of employees, gross operating surplus? Is it that? What do you all think when we say aggregate income here? Think, I want you to think quickly. Come on, these are four. I have around 10 answers so far. What do you all think? Rent, wages, interest, profit, consumption, savings, this and this and this. Which one? Aggregate income equals aggregate supply. Okay, fine, correct. But what do we write here? What are the components that we write over here? Right. So mainly, guys, what you can say over here for an answer like this. Now, this is a little outdated also, right? So what they expected here, now this in this 2016 question, what they expect, this is a little outdated here. So what they expected, if I'm not mistaken, you all can check the answer scheme also, if, right? What they expected was the main components of the income approach during that time. So what do we have, guys? We have compensation of employee. Now, what is income? So what is aggregate income? Aggregate income is the total income of the country. So from where and where do you get income? You have compensation of employees. You can have gross operating surplus, or you can, for example, say operating surplus, and you can give mixed income separately. Right now, even now, what about these guys? What about this interest and all of that? You can give things like, let's say, for example, property income. So property income will include rent plus interest, right? This is property income. And you can also talk about government income, right? So remember, government earns, so other taxes on production, less subsidies. You can give in something like that. Or else you can also talk about rent, interest, and profits also. So this is one way of saying this. You can say that there is compensation of employees, gross operating surplus, but inside gross operating surplus, the property income will also be included. But if you want, you can include it separately as well, no issue. And other taxes on production, less subsidies. Or else, guys, you can give in an answer like this. You can say, for example, net interest. You can say rent. You can say, profits. You can say something like net profit or something. Okay. And maybe you can give mixed income here, unincorporated businesses profits. Okay. So don't worry too much about this question, because this is a little out of syllabus now. Okay. So they're not going to talk much about it now. Now, usually now, if they are going to ask you this question, they might not ask you what are the components of aggregate income. They might most likely ask you what are the components of, let's say, calculating the total income of a country. So then you can write the income approach methods, the components, compensation of employees, gross operating surplus, right? You can write that. So that is what they might most likely ask nowadays. Now, I don't think they'll give you a question like this. So don't worry too much about it. Is that okay, guys? Step 2016 part 2. Yeah. Yes, also one more thing I just remembered, for a question like this, right, when they give you 4 marks, now it's usually 2 marks about what is value added, 2 marks about how it's calculated. So when they give you 2 marks for how it's calculated, something like this might not be enough sometimes. So you know what you can do? You can give in a small example, right? You can say, there was a farmer who produced cotton, he sold it to this, right? Or you can just say farmer, textile manufacturer, or cloth manufacturer, textile manufacturer, retailer. You can say this person's output is this much, he used this much of intermediate consumption, that is his value addition. So you can give the equation and give it using a small example. That would have been better because they're giving you 2 marks now. So if it was something like 1 mark, maybe just saying GVO minus IC should have been okay. Let's just have those in mind. Yeah. We'll move to the next one. I think this is the last one from the 2016 paper. Explain whether the following transactions are included or not included in GDP of a country. Okay, we'll start with the first one. A tourist hotel purchases 10 million worth of foreign-made canned food. Is this included or not included? Tourist hotel, 10 million canned food. Okay, not included. Why? What is your explanation? You can explain this in 2 ways. But tell me, why is it not included? One is, these are imported, right? So imported means it's not produced within your geographical boundaries, right? What can you include in Sri Lanka's GDP? Whatever that is produced within the geographical boundaries of Sri Lanka. So that is one reason that you can't record. Can you think of another one? Also, because these are intermediary goods, right? If you include this, what would happen? There would be double counting. Because if you take this tourist hotel, the service or the food that they are providing is the final good. Now, they are purchasing some canned food, let's say things like salmon. So they are purchasing salmon. So salmon is an intermediate good. If you include that also in GDP, then what happens? That becomes double counting. Right? So you can explain it either in any of this. You can either say this is imported, right, outside the geographical boundary, therefore not included, or you can say these are intermediary goods. If possible, give both. That would make your answer look nice. Then we'll go into part B. A soft drink manufacturing company builds a new bottling plant in the capital city. What do you think? Maybe let's say someone like Elephant House has built a bottling plant in Colombo. Do we include or do we not include? We include, right? Can you tell me what do we say, guys? How do we write this? So you can say this is a productive economic activity that will be included under you can say private investment or gross domestic capital formation. Yeah, you can give in something like that. So always remember, guys, when you're saying something is included, remember what is our basis. If something is a productive activity, we include it, no? So when you're trying to explain the reason why it's included, say that it's included because it is a productive economic activity, and say where is it included. Then the examiner will give you your mark. Right. Part C. Investor buys rupees 30 million worth of shares in a major commercial bank. Included or excluded? This is not included. Why is it not included? Why is this purchasing of shares not included, or in other words excluded? Because this is a purely financial transaction. This is a purely financial transaction that does not add any value. There is no productive economic activity taking place. Okay. D, a book publisher produces too many copies of a new book. The surplus copies that did not sell, they were added to the inventories. Do we include this in GDP? So there is a book publisher who has printed a lot of books, but they were not able to sell off most of it during the year. So the balance is there. So that balance, do we include it in this year's GDP? So no. I taught this to you all somewhere in the recently. I told this to you all, right? I remember this changes in I think last week. So it's included, no? Why? Remember, even though it's not sold during this year, right? Okay. Okay. So even though it was not sold during this year, it was actually produced during this year, no? So what was I don't hear if anyone talks, but I just see the mic going, right? Because I only wear a mic, I don't wear a headphone. Okay. So I don't know what was being said, but okay. So when someone says, why is it included? Because even though it was not sold this year, it was produced this year. So what is GDP? GDP is all the final goods and services produced during a given time period. So regardless of whether it's sold or not, that is, in other words, your closing stock. So you need to include that in GDP. So you can say it's included. Why is it included? Since it was produced during the given year. It was produced during the given year. And where will this be included? It will be included, right? Included in changes in inventory. Changes in inventory under where? Remember, under gross domestic capital formation. Is that okay, guys? Now, these are very common questions that you all get. It's almost like a free mark now. Every year, most of the time they ask you, are these included or excluded? Right? Explain. So you need to say included or not included. Write a small line or two about that. Is that okay? Fine. That's the 2016 A-level unit 5 question. Right.